You'd think that breaking a 33-year global silence would happen with a bang, but it didn't. It started with a social media post. Today, we are going to dive deep into a single announcement that, honestly, has the power to unravel decades of nuclear stability and maybe even push the world toward a brand new and, frankly, terrifying arms race. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, picture this. It's October 30th, 2025. It's a pretty normal day. The world's just going about its business. And then a notification pops up. But this isn't just any notification. This one sends absolute shockwaves through diplomatic circles, the scientific community, everywhere. In an instant, everything changes.
And this is it. This is the post. Let's really break it down, because every word here matters. It starts with the justification, because of other countries' testing programs. Then comes the direct order. I have instructed the Department of Defense to immediately restart our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. And the timeline? No ambiguity there. That process will begin immediately. It's incredibly direct, it's declarative, and it pretty much announces the end of a policy that has defined the entire post-Cold War era.
Now, an announcement this big, it's always built on a few key claims. So our job in this explainer is to just methodically pull this post apart, right? To separate the political rhetoric from the cold, hard facts. What's actually true here, what isn't, and why might this story be framed in this specific way to begin with?
So let's start with the very first idea here, that the United States has the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world. This really sets the stage, doesn't it? It suggests that the US is in this position of strength that's somehow being threatened, which creates a reason to act. But is it even accurate?
Well, the data tells a very different story. If you look at the numbers from the Federation of American Scientists, as of early 2025, Russia actually has more nuclear warheads. They have 5,580. Compared to the United States, 5,044. So, right off the bat, that foundational claim, it's just factually incorrect. The US has the second largest arsenal, not the largest.
Okay, so let's move on to the second claim. This one focuses on China's nuclear program, which is definitely expanding. The assertion here is that even though China is a distant third right now, it's going to achieve parity. It's going to catch up with the US and Russia in just 5 years. That paints a picture of this unprecedented, immediate threat that demands a super fast response.
But again, the math just doesn't really add up. Look, China is modernizing and expanding its arsenal. That part's true. But current estimates suggest they're adding about 100 warheads a year. At that pace, to catch up to the roughly 5,000 warheads the US has, well, it wouldn't take 5 years. It would take about 45 years. Now, this isn't to say China's buildup isn't a big deal, but it really highlights the pretty dramatic exaggeration in that 5-year timeline.
All right, now we get to the absolute core justification for this whole thing. The reason given for restarting US tests is that other countries are already doing it. This is the central pillar of the entire argument, suggesting that America is just responding, that its hand is being forced by others. And this is maybe the most critical point to understand. That central pillar, it's just false. The major nuclear powers, we're talking the US, Russia, China, the UK, France, they have all observed a moratorium on testing for decades. The only country that has conducted a nuclear test this century is North Korea. So the entire premise is basically built on fiction. Finally, let's tackle this claim of immediacy. The Post says the process to restart testing will begin immediately. That gives you a sense of urgency, right? Of decisiveness. Like a switch can just be flipped and we're back in business.
But the reality is so much more complex. Restarting nuclear testing is a monumental task. I mean, look at this graphic. It shows all the interlocking pieces you need. Highly specialized people, updated safety protocols, incredibly advanced equipment, legal frameworks. It's like turning a dozen different keys all at the same time. You can't just push a button. Experts figure it would take at least 2 to 3 years just to get ready for the first new test. So the process is anything but immediate.
So we've deconstructed the claims and found that for the most part, they're baseless. But the real danger here isn't just about misinformation. It's about threatening a global norm, a standard of behavior that has been the very bedrock of trying to prevent nuclear spread for more than 3 decades. And that really begs the question, if the justifications are false, what's the real goal here?
33 years. Just let that number sink in for a minute. For over 3 decades, since 1992, the United States has not detonated a nuclear weapon.
And this isn't just a passive thing, it's an active policy of restraint. It's been this powerful, unspoken agreement among the world's biggest powers to just collectively step back from the brink. This timeline really shows you just how strong this norm became. The Soviet Union stopped in 1990. The US followed suit in 92. China did its last test in 1996. For an entire generation, the most powerful nations on Earth all agreed that actually detonating these weapons, even for a test, was a line we just shouldn't cross. Now, this norm is kind of held up by the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, or the CTBT. And here's a crucial little detail. The treaty has never actually officially gone into force. That's because key nations, including the US, haven't ratified it. But even so, its very existence created this incredibly powerful taboo. Signing it was like a global handshake agreement, and for a major power to be the first to break it, well, that would shatter that global trust.
So what happens if that trust gets shattered? What are the real-world consequences if the US is the first major power to break this 33-year-long silence? This isn't just some hypothetical question. Experts have mapped out a pretty clear and predictable chain reaction. So how does this domino effect actually play out? Well, it starts with the US test. That shatters the global norm. Almost immediately, Russia responds, resuming its own testing and blaming American provocation. Then China, feeling it needs to restore strategic balance, ramps up its program and does its first test since 1996. This then emboldens regional powers like India and Pakistan, who feel they have to conduct their own tests to keep up with each other. And before you know it, with tests happening all over, the entire Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the cornerstone of arms control, could just collapse. It would be a free-for-all. But the danger, it goes even deeper than a new arms race. There's a really profound psychological shift that happens when we start testing again. It's the risk of normalizing something that should be unthinkable. Take a look at these two images. On one side, you have the terrifying, awesome power of a nuclear missile. On the other, just a totally ordinary highway in Nevada, not too far from the old test sites. For decades, we've worked really hard to keep these two worlds separate. The nuclear has been abnormal, unthinkable. Normalization is that slow, creeping process where the extraordinary destructive power on the left starts to feel as routine as the boring highway on the right. It's a psychological shift that just lowers our collective guard. This quote just nails it perfectly. When mushroom clouds become a regular thing on the news again, the weapon slowly changes from an unthinkable deterrent into just another tool in the toolbox. That psychological barrier to actually using one in a real conflict starts to wear down. This isn't just about the physics of the explosion, it's about the psychology of our own survival. So this announcement and the chain of events it could set off, it really places the entire world at a crossroads. The future of nuclear arms control isn't set in stone. Based on what experts are saying, there are basically 3 different paths that could unfold from here. Okay, path 1, which many think is the most likely, is the bluff. The idea is that the announcement is just political theater meant to create leverage, but no tests actually happen. Path 2 is a limited return. Here, the US conducts just one, maybe a small demonstration test. It would still be enough to collapse the test ban treaty and trigger responses. And then there's path 3, the nightmare scenario, full escalation, where the US starts a regular testing program, plunging the world headfirst into a new Cold War arms race, but this time with more players and way fewer rules.
This graphic really just boils it all down, doesn't it? The announcement is the trigger, the fork in the road. One path leads down a dark road of nuclear testing and chain reactions. The other path leads toward maintaining that non-proliferation norm, treating these things as weapons to be dismantled, not demonstrated. The choice isn't just for politicians. It's about what kind of world we all want to inhabit.
And that leaves us with the final question. For the first time in a generation, the starting pistol for a new nuclear race has been raised. The question for all of us is not just if it will be fired, but whether we, as a global community, are actually going to choose to run that race at all.